Alright everybody, another video here for you. This one is going to deal with not world building as approaches to world building. I'll do the videos on that later after I've done a little bit more of gathering of research and put together some visuals for it and talk about different aspects of world building and I don't know, like I said, in more topical sense, dealing with specific subjects. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun because I've been, like I said, delving into that quite a bit. But this one is more dealing with what I'd like to call world builder syndrome, and that's probably. I mean, I doubt I'm the first one to coin a term or an idea like that. But I figured since it's a series, I'd like to include this as one of the videos if people are going to be following it video by video. And basically, world builder syndrome is the inability to actually sit down and write the story and get going because you are completely focused on the world building aspect and using that as kind of an excuse to, avoid, committing to writing the story, like I said. So, and like at the beginning of your journey as a writer or a potential writer, you should at least decide from the, at the get-go, are you interested in just, coming up with some ideas and in the, in the world building sense, just creating a world and inhabiting it with different creatures or, different people or characters or, different settings, different types of, governments, different kinds of, nations and different civilizations, societies, different, geology, geographic elements. You want to create some planet that exists somewhere far in the solar system where alien races live and everything is completely different from Earth. Or you're creating kind of an alternate Earth where some aspects of the planet are different. And that's the beginning and the end of your pursuit, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If maybe you're an artist and a lot of it has to do with, drawing, creature concepts and things like that in the world building sense, because it's, it's your outlet for expressing yourself. But if you want to write and pursue getting published and actually selling books, then you can't be overwhelmed and completely consumed with world building because it's keeping you from finishing a manuscript and revising it and so forth. And B, you're probably in the mindset that all of this world building and information is going to have to be included in the story itself, which is not the case more times than not. Though there are audiences that like really long books with tons of world building added into them, so don't completely dismiss it as a dead end. But for the most part, there's this concept of the iceberg where you have the bulk of the iceberg is below the surface, which is obviously going to be what the audience or the readers aren't aware of. They see the tip of the iceberg, and that's kind of, what they get in the sense of the world building. So, you're not going to, for world building, I think serves the purpose of obviously giving you ideas of, setting and the types of, creatures that will inhabit your world and that. So as far as the brainstorming part, but I think it's to give you a better idea, of, how to have logical consistency, because you have a kind of a plan of how everything is going to work in your world. The rules of magic, how physics is going to be, like the laws of, physics, and if they're going to be the same as, on Earth, or if, they're going to be totally different. Gravity is going to be some wacky, type of, law of physics that is completely different than it is here, and all that. So, any of those, aspects. So you have a lot, you're drawing inspiration from that. You're also, like I said, having logical consistency. You're getting a better idea of how, things operate within the context of that world. And this is all good to have in the back of your mind, because, it's going to kind of keep you within a certain framework that, so that you're not contradicting yourself and, creating situations where you have to write yourself out of a corner using, less than, satisfactory, methods that, may disappoint the audience. So logical consistency is big. Being a source of inspiration to spawn new ideas. Like I said, your world building, you're going to go back to and, see this world kind of coming to life, at least, conceptually, and that's going to probably inspire you to, continue to add upon what you've already built. And, which is good. It's good to have motivation and, to have, kind of get that snowball effect where, you start to build, the rules of your world, and then you say, well, I've got this set of rules of how everything functions, and, now I can, now I have another idea, and will it work? Yeah, it'll operate within this, the rules of my, fictional universe. So I can add it, and it'll help you eliminate some things that may not work out well. Like, when I said in the previous video, the pros and cons. So the world building aspect of it will set some, like I said, not, some rules and kind of dictate what may or may not be permissible in that world. And that'll help eliminate some of the confusion and, the time wasted, trying to, try to fit it, see how much stuff you can fit in there. You have a better idea going forward. But ultimately, it's your kind of little guide to your world while you're writing that you can reference and go back to if you need to. And some of it will end up in the story, but not necessarily as it's, the what is commonly called the info dump, where you're basically just giving the audience just this huge rundown of, the concepts or the, the history, and just like, just basically just writing it out and just in a kind of an, like a complete, I guess a dictionary or encyclopedia entry, giving them this kind of whole, rundown of what's going on or how things work, instead of, having confidence in yourself to, let some of this stuff kind of manifest little by little throughout the story, because you don't feel you have the confidence to achieve that. So you feel like, I got to throw everything out there, just so, because otherwise, the readership's not going to realize how awesome my ideas are, my concepts are, which, is not going to necessarily be the case. And you also should have, some confidence in your readers that they're going to be intelligent enough, or, have good enough skills of observation to, start to put, the one and one together and connect the dots and so forth, and kind of generate their own interpretations of what's going on, which, the book, like I said, Stories Like a Song of Ice and Fire, or I guess a series, would say, has spawned a lot of that speculation, a lot of that, theories about it, because a lot of stuff has been left unsaid. And, and if you've got people totally, psyched about, the what possibly, could be the answer to some of these questions or theories, and you get people talking back and forth online, that's generating a lot of buzz and a lot of interest, and that's only going to help you out when it comes to people wanting to buy your books and, dive into that world of fantasy that you've created. So, like I said, don't worry too much about, trying to cram all of the world building aspects into your story. Like I said, sprinkle it in little by little. Use the different methods, different, tactics of storytelling to put in what is necessary to further the story to get it moving along. And you'll usually be in pretty good shape doing that. Like I said, info dumps are, kind of, sometimes they reveal too much too early on. Kind of, and you don't create this kind of atmosphere of mystery and get the audience thinking about, what may be coming, down the road, or, what something may, end up being, because, you've basically just filled in all the blanks for them before they've gotten to any of the good parts of your book. And that, that can be a surefire way to have them stop and not want to read any further. So yeah, world building is important if you're going to be creating like an epic fantasy or high fantasy or, hard sci-fi, especially when it comes to research. If you're doing, something set in a science fiction world, but it has the same rules of, physics that we have here, then you're trying to explain how parts of a spaceship work, or parts of, advanced technology works, but it's based on, principles that exist in our world. And you need to do the research, to be able to, not sound like a complete noob when you're explaining it. But other than that, like I said, don't be worried that you need to over-explain everything. Have confidence in yourself as a storyteller that you can choose and, the bits and pieces that are the most relevant at that part in the story's, progress, that you can, slowly lead the reader along and let their imagination fill in maybe some of the blanks and get their interest up, because, that's kind of, if you're doing a series and you want to end one book with, reader anticipation and interest that's going to, bleed over to the next book. You want to, like I said, weave a tale or spin a yarn, as they say, and that's, leading the reader along, from point to point and maintaining their interest. And if you jar them with these, huge info dumps and just, exposition and, dialogue, that may, just be explaining all this stuff outright that, that seems kind of out of place, or, kind of spoils some, or, fractures the illusion that you're weaving, or the, within your story, that may, have a negative impact. And like I said, if you're a new author and you're publishing your first book, you want to make a good first impression. You want to, demonstrate to the audience that you have the ability to, show some restraint when it comes to throwing out all this information, and that, and like I said, that'll reflect in your and give the impression that you have, the confidence that you can tell the story you want to tell, include the relevant bits of information, and, like I said, make the most out of the least. And I think that's a, pretty good approach for new authors. Like I said, I've done a ton of world building and research, but I'm not going to include, more than maybe 10, 15, maybe 20% of what I've done. And it's going to be over multiple books. And don't forget that you can also, you can create companion books, or maybe you can put some of your world building concepts on a website as, supplementary material to the book. So when someone's finished it and maybe they have some questions or are curious about how you came to, come up with these ideas and what inspired you, they can hop onto your website or maybe your YouTube channel if you want to talk about some of the ideas, and they can do it there after the fact, after they've, read and enjoyed your story. And like I said, there's like, companion books can be written, A Song of Ice and Fire was like The World of Ice and Fire, where it's got a whole bunch of stuff about the history of, of the world, and all this other information that a lot of the people that are really interested in, because it takes the history of that world takes place over, these thousands of years. So some people are really into, I want to learn more about this character or this historical figure that was maybe mentioned in passing in, in a chapter or a point of view chapter in the book. And it's like, I want to learn more about this guy. And so there's, like I said, there's a place for that. And, it's best to, like I said, work and include, the least amount that you need to tell the story. I think that'll serve you well as a kind of a rule of thumb. So yeah, don't get bogged down in thinking you have to have, this insane amount of world building information thrown in there. And don't get so obsessed with world building that you don't actually sit down and start writing. Don't turn world building into an excuse to procrastinate, because it's very easy to do that, because you're in the mindset, well, I'm researching and developing this story. So that technically isn't that writing? Isn't that make progress towards the final manuscript and the finished product? And not necessarily. And you can get stuck where, like I said, you're just that's all you focus on, and it becomes an excuse. And like I said, eventually you're going to have to write the book. You can't just sit there and think, just write all this stuff down about all these crazy ideas and cool concepts and think that that's going to cause the story to write itself, because it won't. And I'm guilty of it a little bit. So like I said, I'm getting better at devoting some time to writing prose and dialogue as well, so I can, even if I'm making little baby steps along and I'm doing the bulk of the time with world building, then I'm still making progress. So try to do that too. Like I said, self-confidence. Even if you're new, have confidence in yourself, and build confidence by writing, and writing more and more and more, and then you'll realize that I can tell this story, and don't need to just flood with every world building concept that I've ever come up with. So yeah, hopefully that'll be of some use to you, and I hope everybody's having a great day, and I'll come out with a video pretty soon on another topic. Until then, take it easy.